So moving on to the next part of bullions and buds, to a knot rose. So this is a bullion knot rose. So you're starting pretty much the same way as before by coming through from the back, and then you make quite a small stitch. And then you need to wrap 8, 9 or 10 times. 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times around your needle. Then bring it up through. Camel. And same technique as we did for just a standard bullion. You bring your needle up until your coils are neat. Then you come back down through the bottom hole. And pull that tight, and you end up with a little ring. Now if you just come from behind and just stitch that into place, you have the start of a rose, and then you continue around. If you start with a fairly small centre to begin with, then everything gradually gets bigger. It will take some time and some practice to get you to learn how many loops around you need per stitch. Okay, so that's the first one. And then leave a slight gap for your next one, and continue round, and you can keep building this as big as you want, or as big as you've got patience for, essentially. So as you continue round, you can loosen up on your stitches as you pull them in, so that you give each layer more body. Or you can keep them all tight, it's entirely up to you, however you want to do it. I prefer to give them more fullness, so it does look a bit more like a flower. So you kind of release things and let them fall where they go, so you end up with a puffier petal, and you can build your flower a lot faster. So a Ciro Connor rose starts pretty much the same as the knot rose. You make a very small stitch just to hold the thread in place, and then 9 or 10 loops. Oop. About there. Again, I'm using a really thick thread and a really thick needle, so it's making this a lot more difficult than it needs to be. You come back through your original hole and you end up with a loop, and just stick in a stitch just to flatten that down. So a Ciro Connor rose, you don't put the petals tight to the centre, so you start one end that's tight and the other that's out a ways. You need to come a bit closer again. Oh, wait. So we start close to the centre and then come out. Oh yeah, there you are. So pull that through and then bring it back and tuck in the end Now for a silicone rose you need to keep this end out. So your next petal, you start outside and then tuck into the gap here. And sew it into place. Like that. Well, it's going to come out on camera. You can see that I'm gradually building the pattern here. So next petal I'm starting here. No, I'm in the wrong hole. Sorry, had a moment there. So starting far away, well, in relation to the centre of the flower, and then tucking back behind and back through my original hole. And then building the stitch. Okay. So you pull it up until the coil sits neatly and stitch back through. Pull it down, it brings the tension down. So you're gradually building the petals around.